Hi, this is Gene Dinapoli. Just want to let you know that your comments tonight might be shown on screen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gene Dinapoli.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back Monday night, October the 18th. I'm so sorry, with episode 54 of Reminiscing with Gene Dinapoli. Once again, my name is still Gene Dinapoli, and I'm proud to be that. Right now, word from our sponsors. Hit it, Gabe.
Hi, this is Francisco. Many people call me the creative CPA. If you need help with your taxes or financial matters, please email me your cell number and the best time and day to call you. You can email me at franciscisco@aol.com, and Cisco is spelled SISCO, the creative CPA. It's that simple, that easy. Thank you.
Craving a cruise? Perhaps a gorgeous all-inclusive resort, magnificent destination weddings, and stunning, unforgettable honeymoons. Dream Destinations Travels, a cruise planner franchisee, has all your travel and vacation ideas covered with great deals, extensive knowledge, and totally flexible payment plans. Group travel, be it family or friends, is our specialty. Never a charge to our clients and always free, no obligation quotes. Check our website at sundrencruises.com or give us a call, the number above.
Little Italy Auto Repair at 628 Crescent Avenue in the true Little Italy of the Bronx. Over 50 years of automotive service excellence, ASC and state certified, offering all types of services to all types of cars. Discounts to first responders, military, Fordham University students and faculty. All work is done by Victorio with the highest level of quality possible. Telephone number is 718-933-2365 or visit his website at www.littleitalyAutobronx.webs.com. That's Little Italy Auto Repair. All right. We have our t-shirt for sale. Okay, put the t-shirt up. There we go. Just message me or go to the website, genedinapoli.com, to find out how to get your Gene Dinapoli t-shirt. Thank you so much. Next week, we had a scheduling mishap. My fault, which I will take blame. So we're not going to have the original guest we wanted, who was Judy from the Chiffons, one of my favorite female groups. But next week, we are going to have a gentleman from the 70s who sold more records via TV commercials than anyone else. This is a special tribute to my mother and my father, Lou. Their wedding song was a song called Do I Love You? And next week, we have the great Peter Lemongello on our show. If you remember Peter Lemongello, please tune in next week at 8 o'clock. It is sure to be a great show. Also, don't forget our doo-wop show at the White Plains Performing Arts Center, November 5th. Gabe put the poster up. There we go. Starring the Dimensions, Rain in the Rainbows, The Magic Touch, The Fabulous Accords, and Twin Gold. It's Friday, November 5th at 8 o'clock. For tickets, go to WPPAC.com or call 914-328-1600. That's WPPAC.com. I want to address something on this show. We had booked this doo-wop show about 3 months ago. And about 4 weeks ago, we lost the lead singer of The Dimensions, Mr. Lenny Dell. Fell ill and passed away. We've had a couple of inquiries if we're going to replace the group. We are not going to replace the group. The group did a great job when Lenny was not with them for 30 years. They still do a great job, and it's about the music and the memories. We're going to miss Lenny Dell, but we will continue with the show to bring back great memories. So we're going to dedicate that show to Mr. Lenny Dell. Okay. So when I talk about my guests, when I do the work on them, I'm amazed at how much I find out doing my due diligence. Our guest tonight, if it wasn't the fact that he had 22 charted hits in the United States, if it wasn't the fact that he was 60 million records sold, if it wasn't the fact that he was the top single seller in 1965, if that's not enough, how about I hit you with, he started acting when he was a kid. School plays, East End in London, took piano lessons, guitar lessons, became one of the biggest stars ever. There's just no doubt about it, ever. And then to show the world that no matter what you do, you could keep going and moving forward. He is now the host of a syndicated Sirius radio show called Something Good on 60s on Sirius, Saturday night, 5 o'clock. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to feel good, feel something good, and be into something good, join us now as we bring in the never-changing teenager, Mr. Peter Noon of Herman's Hermits. Come on in, Peter.
I'm here. How you doing? Hi, Gene.
What happened? There you go. I think you got to turn your volume down, Peter.
I turned it off. How about that? Can you still hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, Peter.
No, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, I can't hear you, Gene.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I could hear you fine before.
Right,
that was a great introduction. Let me switch this one off and go back on the iPhone.
Okay.
I'll be right with you. I'm sorry, man. One second.
Okay. That's quite all right. Be right back, everybody. This is what happens when you go live. That's why live is so much fun. You never know what to expect. But he looks great, doesn't he, ladies and gentlemen? Doesn't Peter Noon look fabulous? All right. Okay. It was very echoey. When he comes back, we're gonna have him join us. How many people there he is?
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. Suddenly the sound went berserk here.
That's okay. You hear us now?
Yeah, I hear you beautifully. And that was a great introduction. Thank you, Gene.
Well, Peter, you're welcome. You're well deserving of it. I got to tell you, I knew about you because I've been to your shows. We crossed paths a few times. I'm going to show you a picture right now. Gabe, put up picture number 12. Peter, this is me and you in the year 1998 at the World Trade Center.
Yeah, I recognize it.
Yes. You did the CBS FM shows, and I was head of security for the shows. And I got to tell you, when I met you, everybody was so, don't bother him. He keeps to himself. You were so nice. That's why I've been an advocate of Peter Noon's from back then because you treat everybody like their family.
Well, I especially treat the security people because they're the only people who could really hurt me.
Never happened.
I,
Peter,
it's a great
we're
time,
gonna
great
what?
time in the music business because I'm lucky that I've been in it for like 60 years, and most people that I've met are actually okay.
Yeah, you always find the one or two that give you a little bit of a sour taste. But after 60 plus years, uh, have you come across many people that irked you the wrong way?
Not many, but there's like you say, Gene. There's always going most people I get on well with. That I keep myself to myself because if you spend too long in the room, people might find out who you really are. So it is an acting job, as you know. It's tough to be pleasant and polite and convivial 24 hours a day. I need time on my own. So that's the hermit part of me is
Right.
precious.
Absolutely. Let me say this. Happy pre-birthday to you in a few weeks.
Yeah.
November the 5th, which on November 5th, you're going to be performing up in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
On your birthday.
Peekskill.
Peekskill.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's great.
Yeah, they're all good to me. I mean, it's my fans will go anywhere. So there'll be a lot of people there who hopefully it'll be another one that sells out. We've been very lucky recently, Gene. Everything's doing really good. I think people are so happy to get out and not have the pressure of political or they know Herman's Hermits is going to be about Henry VIII and Mrs. Brown.
Right. Nothing but fun when people come to your show. Matter of fact, your show, you start off with I'm into something good.
Yeah.
Which is the title of your 60s Sirius radio show. And I got to tell you, whenever I come to your shows, if I get into an argument with my wife in the car on the way there, the minute your song plays, everybody feels good.
Oh, great. Just as long as it's not You've Lost That Loving Feeling.
No, we don't. Peter, tell us, you were a child actor in Lancashire, England, right?
In Coronation Street. I was in a load of them. What happened was I went to a school of music. My dad made me go to a school of music so that I could draw a treble clef. And around the corner, the first independent television station came up. There used to be the BBC and then nothing else.
Right.
A local company started a thing called Granada Television, and it was independent television, and it immediately overtook because people were sick of the same shows on BBC. And I was in a load of shows there, and eventually I got in a thing called Coronation Street, which was it was the number one TV show in England. Wow. And not because I was in it, because it just was the number one TV show. And it didn't help me in the music business other than to get money to buy a van for my group called Pete Novak and the Heartbeats.
Right.
From it, but I didn't really want to be an actor. I went to this school of music and I saw there was a drama class and a musicians class, and the musicians were always laughing, and all the drama people were, they were all a miserable bunch, and not the type who could dance very well. So I immediately got more musical direction from there. I would, like some guy showed me a Chuck Berry song, and he said, look, you just got to be able to play, you've got to be able to bar a chord, and then you can play all Chuck Berry songs. So that's it. That was my class.
So when you were growing up, were your parents musically inclined or anybody in your family?
My dad was an accountant who'd been a trombone player.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a musical past, and Gene, you weren't around at the time, but until television came along, my grandmother was the church choir mistress. They were allowed to call them the choir mistress. And my grandfather played the massive organ, like Felix Cavalieri type of player, played with his feet too. And when there was a wedding or a funeral or a christening or a baptism or Christmas, everybody would go in this room. There was a small room, and everybody had a musical instrument. My father played the trombone, his brother played the trumpet, my grandfather played the piano, and my father's brother played the piano. She was more Fats Waller, he was more Land of Hope and Glory, Land of Hope, and she was Fats Waller. So we were totally in before TV and radio really got going. People had to entertain themselves with what they could get.
Right.
And we were that family. They all. My grandmother was from Wales, and one grandmother was from Ireland, and one grandfather was from Ireland, and one grandfather was Scotland, and they all brought all their music in that room. And the next generation were playing Fats Waller, and my father was playing those da 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 da. And then rock and roll came along, and then I would be the person who played the Buddy Holly songs on the guitar. It was just, music was not an adventure. It was a part of the entertainment thing, family entertainment.
Was Buddy Holly the first rock and roller you heard in your house?
Nah.
Is that why you mentioned him?
It probably wasn't the first one. I can't remember. My parents would, once upon a time, we were all stuck in the car with whatever music was on the radio. Your mom and dad drove, and they were in the front seat, and you and your sisters and brothers or whatever would be in the back seat, and whatever was on the radio you had to listen to.
Right.
And my father, because he was a musician, there was no scan invented. You couldn't go to another station, and he would make us listen to it, and he would turn it up and make us listen. He'd say, "You got to give the lads a chance. We don't like this. We give the lads a chance." And obviously, the longer you listen to a piece of music, the more you get into it. And they would sing along. My parents would sing along to like the Everly Brothers, and we didn't even know that was a rock and roll band. We thought something our mum and dad got, and then they got a Perry Como record. And Perry Como was the only person who got a British TV show from America. So we eventually sort of eased into rock and roll. We didn't know it was rock and roll. We thought, because the music supply was so limited, we didn't have a R&B station. We didn't have we had one radio station, and we got a bit of everything. So and all those people, they all say their influences are probably 30s and 40s music was where we began, and it metamorphosized into the 50s and then the 60s. And most of those bands from the 60s, those British invasion bands, were playing 50s American music on their first record.
Of course. We're going to put up a picture right now. I want you to talk about the other gentleman that started Herman's Hermits with you in 64.
Yeah, look.
Yeah.
Good lads. When I think about them, I only have good. They were all nice people. We were lucky. Lek in the top left-hand corner, Derek Leckenby, his dad was a police constable in the, local police constable, rode around on a bike telling kids go home and stuff like that, And below him is Barry Whitwell, who was the drummer who came up with the lick of the century in I'm Henry VIII. I mean, it's a one-off. I'm Henry VIII. Top right-hand corner, Carl Green, who was the bass player, good lad. And his dad was, I think he was an engraver. Once upon a time, there was a printing place, and you had to do artwork, was engraving, before computers put that out of the world. The Luddites, we were the Luddites. And the bottom right-hand corner is Keith Hopwood, who I speak to once a week, because he and I own the sort of Herman's Hermits catalogue.
Okay.
And we speak every week because we never saw it coming. We're so happy that there was an opportunity to revive music with the internet. It's quite amazing, really, what's happened.
Let me ask you, when was the last time you actually played the show, the original Herman's Hermits? When was the last time you all were on stage together?
If you can remember. We did a thing called the Royal Command Performance for the Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and I tell you this, Gene, because you're in the business. So I didn't see it. It was live television, and we didn't know there was a copy made. And a couple of years ago, somebody found a copy, and again the internet, and I was able to see it, and I immediately called the four hermits, the three of them who were still alive, and said, "This is a matter." I said, "Did anybody tell you at the end of that show that you were magnificent? That wow, it was like unbelievable. We didn't know you could do that." And everybody said, "No, said that was probably what was wrong with Herman's Hermits, that nobody complimented us when we were good. We heard when we were bad, but nobody ever said, wow, that was a really great job. And looking at it now, we were always great. I mean, the Hermits had to dance. They'd never danced in their lives.
Right.
And they danced their asses off through the whole show. It was quite magnificent. There were no,
is that available, that kinescope?
you know, it's around on the internet. It's called Herman Plays for the Queen Mum.
Right.
It's
Wow.
quite magnificent. The performance from the Hermits, you know, I was just average. Nobody ever likes watching themselves and being critical about themselves. So, you know, I always say I could have done them better. But I'm telling you, those they couldn't have done a better job. They were just magnificent. They were perfect. They didn't make one mistake. No musical. You know, dancing and singing at the same time is really something that we'd prepared ourselves for. You know,
Absolutely.
that for, you know, Broadway stars.
Right. You got hit with it by storm. And by storm, you took the world by storm. Right now, to get us off on a good foot, here is Herman's Hermits with their #1 top chart topping hit. I'm into something good. Gabe, hit it. Let's run. It's so infectious, Peter. It's so infectious.
It's great. And I looked at that, you know, I watched the clip there. That was a thing. Matt Monroe was the star of the movie.
Wow.
And it was Herman's Hermits and the Beatles. The Beatles didn't get top billing on that one. It's called Go-Go Mania. Matt Monroe and the Beatles and Herman's Hermits and the Animals. And I see Eric. You know, Eric's a friend since the very beginning, you know, like 1962 or something. I've known Eric. And, you know, like you guys all know each other from whenever you know each other. So I know Eric from then. And I remember that the director of that TV show that was on, the Beatles were there, everyone was there. And the director said, we'd like you to walk around during the song. And I said, no, we don't. I don't really know what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to clap. I'm frightened. I think I'll just clap. Woke up this morning, feel it. So that's it. And you see the Animals sing House of the Rising Sun and they go marching. There is a heart. And I said to Eric, you did it. You know, you were the punks who never did what anybody wanted. But Herman said, we ain't doing no walking around to the sound of music. But you did.
Did you ever talk to McCartney or Lennon or Harrison and say, we got top billing over you?
No, I never do that. You know, we're from a different world. We never had those billing issues because everybody was a support act. And, you know, Tommy James, in his book, he talks about, like, we did this gig in Birmingham, Alabama and Montgomery, Alabama. We used to do two shows in a day, always. It was historical. The big Bam Sheriff stars in Birmingham and Montgomery. And Tommy James says that me and Eric Burden went to his dressing room and welcomed him on the show. I was on a tour, Herman's Hermits, Animals, and somebody, 1966, and he's there, and I think he's got Hanky Panky in the charts. Hey, Tommy, thanks for being on the show and all that. And he was like, wow, that's, I couldn't believe it. Herman, who was like the headliner, came looking for us just to introduce what a nice guy and how mean Eric was. But I said, no, you know, Tommy, Eric was always a grumpy old man. And I wasn't. And you know, it's a tradition. So he goes, well, what's the tradition? I said, well, you know, we did a gig and the Beatles were on it, and they came to our dressing room and said, hey, Hermit, thanks for being on the show, you know, because I said, because it was a tradition. So Tommy asked them, Tommy's really smart. He goes, who did the Beatles get the tradition from? So, you know, that's a hard, you can't just call Paul McCartney, say, hey, where'd you get that tradition from? But eventually he said, well, ask Tony Bramwell, because he remembers everything about the Beatles. So we get Tony Bramwell. I said, find out who the Beatles got the tradition from. And we go through all the people that it could be. Guess who it was? Of all people, Roy Orbison.
I
Got the tradition off an American who came to England, and the Beatles were on the bill, and they were playing the Liverpool Empire, and the Beatles were on the 5th floor where the girl dancers is on the top of the theatre. And Roy, who was probably only about 30 at the time, walked up all the stairs and said, "Hey, fellas, thank you for being on the shoulder." So tradition was, and the next time was lucky lads, Herman's home, he'd say, "Thanks for being on the show." But I used to see them a lot. I was a pushy little kid, I got to meet Elvis because I insisted on meeting Elvis. I got to meet Johnny Cash because I wanted to meet him. I got to meet Frankie Valli because I wanted to meet him. I got to meet all the people I wanted to meet, and because I would force my way into it, really.
Right.
I was a fan of music.
Right.
It's important for me to tell Johnny Cash that I was a fan, and it was important for me to talk to Elvis about anything except his good looks. About he was the greatest singer of all time because he had 6 different voices, and everybody else, including me and Frankie Valli, only God gave us just one, and they gave him 6. They got people they got he got from but
yeah.
I wanted to tell him that.
When you brought him up, this was going to be later on, but thanks to Joe Marioni for putting this together, our good friend Joe Marioni. When we talked a few weeks ago, I brought up the fact that you interviewed Elvis on the set of the movie Paradise Hawaiian Style.
Yeah.
And you brought up an interesting fact, which was not Elvis related. You had found an old clipping that said Peter Noon of Herman's Hermits meets Elvis in the middle of his 365-day tour.
360.
360. That was the only day you had off, and you couldn't even sleep in.
Yeah, I wanted to meet. They said that the only way you could meet him would be to get there before he started shooting at 6 a.m. So we didn't. Me and Barry, the drummer, we were kind of bigger fans of Elvis than the other guys. The other guys probably were like DJ Fontana more than they liked Elvis. So we get in a car and we're driven up there. And the best part of the story is not really talked about often. Elvis punked us. We go they take us into a Hawaiian village.
Right.
We've never seen a Hawaiian village. It's already pretty impressive. It's like Hawaiian grass huts and girls. No. We don't think movie set. And they take us into this like little hut, Hawaiian hut, and laying flat out on the floor is Elvis Presley with like not very clean clothes, disheveled hair, and an empty bottle of bourbon in his hand. And we go, oh. We don't know what to say because we're just kids, we're about 16, 17 years old. And we just sort of standing around not knowing what to do. And in through the door walks Elvis. And we'd been punked because that was his stunt double from the movie, who was dressed and looked exactly like Elvis. But the guy stood up and it was like a Filipino version of Elvis, a big Hawaiian stud guy. Nice. And you know what? Elvis was the best, most handsome looking guy I ever saw. I was like in shock because he was, you couldn't say this in those days. Now you can say he was a beautiful man. He was a perfect specimen of Elvis. He looked just like Elvis. Of course, he had the movie, but he was fit and like very, very sharp. People picked up on that. He's a dud cat, a country bumpkin. He was not all a country bumpkin. He knew about the Rolling Stones. He knew about the Beatles. He met the Beatles. He knew about Herman's Hermits. He knew about. He was funny, and he was a good repartee is something that most English people are familiar with. But he got great comeback lines. Every one of my lines was supposed to be, edgy and comedic. Right. Like acidic wit is English. Like that's a nice suit. Do they make it in your size? And he was brilliant. Every time I said, how come you made it in show business without long hair? Sideburns. He just quickly, and that's the little known fact about Elvis, that he was very bright.
Yes.
Tom Parker used to remind me all the time. I used to see Tom long time after Elvis. He lived in Vegas. And he keep reminding me how bright Elvis really was. I'd say, well, who made the records? And he got, well, I don't know anything about the records. I looked after the money, and Elvis made the records. I said, yeah, but the producer. Oh, Elvis was in today's world. Elvis would have been credited with everything.
Yeah.
He just didn't. It wasn't the days when people took credits. You know,
No.
people didn't get credits, and it became the 70s.
Right. So you're a big Elvis fan?
Oh yeah, you don't become a bigger Elvis fan.
Right.
Especially, I'm especially a fan of the way he handled that 30 years that he was in the charts with 8 records, and you know, he didn't ever. You know, a lot of people mess it up somewhere along the way. He never failed me. No. I didn't like him when he was got a little bit heavy in Vegas, but he never disappointing.
There's a label that is called FTD, and they take all the outtakes from the sessions and they put them on CDs. So you get to hear the songs as they're recorded. And that's when you really know that Elvis was the producer, because he said, all right, you do this. You know, he took control. Yeah. It might have been credited.
Director and producer, you know. I mean, you know, but have you heard that? There's like that, well, there's a man in New Orleans, you go to Greek, and it's a traditional jazz piece.
Yeah.
And, you know, Elvis takes that apart and eventually it becomes like, oh my God, what an unbelievable. If you play that today, Gene, it is an unbelievable record.
Absolutely. You know? It stands the test of time. It does.
Yeah, it's a mind-blowing piece of work, because remember, the drummer only had 3 drums. It didn't have all over the place. It was like a small little thing, and brilliant playing by everybody. Everybody got into their best shape when they were in the room with Elvis. They say that about Frank Sinatra as well. But everybody played a little better when Elvis walked in.
A little better. Your next release went to number 2, another anthem. This is like a teeny bopper love song. Gabe, play a little bit of the number 2 hit. Can't You Hear My Heartbeat?
Every time I see you looking my way, baby, baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? In the car or walking down the highway, baby, baby, can't you hear my heartbeat? When you move up closer to me, I get a feeling that's ooey. Can't you hear the pounding of my heartbeat? 'Cause you're the one I love. You're the
Okay, 2 questions. Why are you always clapping your hands?
Only in the first 2, because I was afraid.
You really?
Yeah, you know, it just was on the records and I didn't know what to do. You know what, I'm going to do that. I couldn't do that Bobby Darin stuff or any dancing stuff. So, and it took me, you know, I was only 16 there in those 2 clips.
Right.
So I was still new in the business. I've been around for a long time, but I was so skinny that I used to be able to hide behind the microphone stand.
Like Sinatra.
You know, I was afraid. You know, there's nothing wrong with being afraid. It probably brings out the best in people. You know, you do your best performances. Like that Queen Mother date.
Right.
Terrified, because we were doing something that we didn't do normally.
Okay.
You know, and being on television singing with a band, that was new to me. I could go on the television and say my lines.
Right.
Oh, this is a fun, you know, I could learn a script and do it. That was easier because somebody was telling me what to do. When you're in a band and you're the leader of the band, you're telling everybody else what to do.
Right. Right. The second thing I want to ask you is the little sigh in that record.
Yeah, Mickey Most did it. Mickey Most it was like a gag. You know,
what brought that about?
You know, all the recording sessions were like fun events. We were kids, and somebody had given us an opportunity to make records.
Okay.
And the records that we owned were made by idols.
Right.
Anybody who got a record and it got in the charts became this whole nother thing. Right. So when we went in the studio with Mickey Most, who was a singer who never made it in the charts, we always had fun. Fun was a part of the thing. I don't believe you're having fun, and we'd make sure it was fun. And during that thing, because he ran in from the control room, opened the door, and went, ha, and then ran back into the other room and did that thing. And it became a thing. And the people who bought the records, I think you can hear the fact that we were really having fun. We really, really, really were having fun. And we didn't pretend it. And you saw that video, Lek and those guys all looking at each other. We loved it. We just loved it. minute of being in a band and going on the road. And, you know, we never complained. Nobody ever complained. Oh, this trip's a long trip. Nobody. We got on a bus. We got on a bus in I guess, Philadelphia for the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars. 84 days we sat on that bus. And, you know, no one ever complained. The bass player, Carl, would get up into the luggage rack and make it into a sleeping thing. And I was the last on the bus, and I'd get to sit next to Billy Stewart, who was the biggest man I'd ever seen. He weighed like 300 pounds. And I'd get one cheek of my arse onto the seat of the Greyhound bus. And he'd take like 7/8 of the seat with his. And I loved it. I would talk to him about, you know, the chess and stuff like that. I wanted to know, how did you get on this bus? And he wondered how I'd got it. And I'd tell him about English thing, and, you know, and he came to England and did a tour, and Elton John was his piano player.
Wow.
Billy, it's a small world. It's a small world, you know, and I loved every minute of that bus. And we'd play in places. I just did a date 2 days ago with Little Anthony and the Imperials. And the first thing he says, we were kids. How did we manage that? We were kids. The reason we enjoyed it because we were fans of music. Somebody had given us an opportunity to play music and make a living at it. It was like, how long can this go on for? And now all you get is whinging and whining.
Exactly. It's going on 60 plus years for you, Peter, because of your stage presence and your personality, but more importantly, the songs are what make memories.
No kidding.
This next song made a lot of Mrs. Browns wonder if Peter Noon was going to be their son-in-law. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Brown, you got a lovely daughter.
Lovely.
Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter. Girls as sharp as her are something rare. But it's sad, she doesn't love me now. She's made it clear enough, it ain't no good to buy. She wants to return those things I bought her. Tell her she can keep them just the same. Things have changed. She doesn't love me now. She's made it clear enough, it ain't no good to buy.
What a song. What a song.
Yeah.
You topped the charts in America with that one.
Yeah. Instant number one. I think in 3 weeks it went from nowhere to number one. Great record.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, I went to Joe Marione's show, and on the show was Gary Lewis. And Gary Lewis, we had on our show, and every hit was upbeat and very fun. It seems to be the common denominator with your music.
Well, yeah, it was a period, remember, that all Gary's records made by Snuff Garrett, who Bobby V. You know, it's kind of a part of the music business where the record producer would go and find the best song for the artist. It wasn't the artist who wrote all the songs. Right. It was the producer would go and find the songs that fitted the artist. Okay. So they got songs for the Animals that fitted Eric Burden, and they got songs for Herman Summits that fitted Herman Summits. They got songs for Gary Lewis that fitted him and Bobby V and those kind of singers. And the minute that all these artists thought that they could write songs like the Beatles, it all started to kind of drift away. Elvis never tried to write any songs.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And you know, so it just changed a little bit, and everybody started to get drawn towards the songwriter, and and the war is over and all that nonsense started. And before that, it was songs for much younger people, and there was no highbrowing. You know, nobody in my period made a record to impress other musicians. We didn't care about other musicians. They'd get on the label. We want girls and young people to like our records. And I don't know if you were around at the time, but when you were 13 or 14 in those days, there was a place nearby where they didn't have any booze. They had a jukebox on every table, and you could eat a bad hamburger in England. And there was a jukebox, and you played records, and girls would get up and dance and everything. And everything was kind of hunky-dory for a bit. And then suddenly, I don't know what happened. Maybe it's maybe Bob Dylan, who knows? But suddenly, it all got a little bit serious to me. And people started to make records to impress other musicians. And we're the best 3 musicians in the world. And we're going to form a band and wipe you all off the center of the world. But, when you see, you go see Little Anthony in the Imperials, and he does that record. It reminds you of where you were when you heard it.
Right.
I don't remember where I was when Britney Spears' record came out. I don't remember, but I do remember where I was. Everything that happened to me when I was a teenager has some music stamp.
Right.
Oh yeah, that is it. And
right.
I've got this thing. I'm doing this thing called the Peter Noon Collection, which is like a collection of everything. That's where we got the Herman's Hermits at the Queen Mom and all that stuff, and it's all being put in a collection. And some guy who's has some information that we need says, you were playing at this place in Manchester, and we were sitting at the traffic light of the car, and some bloke comes up to the car and says, "Can you believe it? John F. Kennedy's been assassinated." And we can remember the song that played in the car after that bloke said that, after that man said that to us.
Right.
It's kind of, there's defining moments, and maybe there are now.
Right.
But I don't hear them anymore because I'm not in the car with other people.
What was that song, Peter?
Huh?
Do you remember? What was that song?
It's in the story. I can't remember it offhand right now, but it was probably, it could have been Danny and the Juniors at the Hop, because it wouldn't be related to, remember the songs on the radio weren't related to the news.
No.
They were all romance. It's probably At the Hop by Danny and the Juniors. Not related to the death of, because that guy had heard it on the news, and the news wasn't on the radio. The radio every hour was the news, and that lasted for about a minute. It wasn't on for 24 hours a day with some commercial was the only channel. Music. Right. Music used to be delivered to us by people who liked music.
Right.
I like this record, I'm going to play it. How many times did you hear a DJ say that? All the time when you were a kid.
Right. No more.
No
more. There's playlists and
somebody took it away from the DJs and gave it to some business. I don't know what happened.
The business end.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I always say, and once people started to talk about how much money the Rolling Stones were grossing on a tour and stuff like that, that gave people a chance. I used to think that should have been kept secret. Do you know what I mean? I think we don't need to know how much, because then you say, wow, the tickets are expensive. Yeah, well, the Mick's got all the money. He's got $100 million. You know what I mean? All that stuff. Right. And that envy stuff comes in. We used to well, you made a great record. And then people say, well, I got ripped off and all that stuff. And it all goes, I'm telling you, I said it hundreds of times. If you'd have told me when I was 14 that I was going to make a record and I was going to play 360 days a tour, and even for 1 year, I would have said, how much do you want? What's that going to cost me?
That's honesty. Peter. Maybe that's why you're going to be everlasting in this business for a long time. And number one again, 1965, how you did it. You took a historical figure, put him in a pop song with a twist beat, went to number one. I'm Henry, the 8th I Am. Hit it, Gabe.
I am.
From Manchester, England, Peter Herman Moore, Derek Offenby, Paul Gill, Steve Hopwood, and Barry Shipman, who are Herman Hermit. Thank you! I'm Henry the 8th I am, Henry the 8th I am. I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. She wouldn't have a Willie nor a Sam. No Sam. I'm a 8th old man, I'm Henry. Henry the 8th I am. Second verse, same as the first. I'm Henry the 8th I am. Henry the 8th I am. I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. Wouldn't have a Willie nor a Sam. Sam. I'm a great old man, I'm Henry the Eighth I am.
Talk about leading an audience, Peter.
You know, it's how we speeded it up. It got faster and faster as it was going. You know, I once said to Charlie Watts, "Hey, Charlie, why did you do that? Why do you play it so fast? That come on, you know, the Chuck Berry song." And he says, "We were probably frightened." I'm sure we were frightened there because we couldn't hear ourselves. And you know, we'd insisted right from the beginning that we wanted to play live everywhere. So you know, we're live there, and the union guys wouldn't let us plug ourselves in. You know, you had to give them the cable, and they plugged it in and turned the volume up and everything. And we were kind of mugs. We listened to everybody, and but there was a big fear factor, and you know. After that show, we went back to the hotel. We were staying at the City Square in New York, which everybody stayed there. And we stood on the top of the parking garage. We could get out of the hotel onto the parking garage. And me and Mick and Keith and Brian at the time, and Andrew Oldham, their manager, and Tom Jones and his manager, we stood on the roof. And there were literally, you know, the world is prone to show business exaggeration. There were literally hundreds of girls and boys in the street singing up to us. And you know, a week later the Stones put out Satisfaction, you know what I mean? So the world was about to change, but that was a big moment for Herman Summits. And Tom Jones who's been my friend for 60 years, he got to witness that, and his manager said, "That's the power of television."
Yeah, absolutely. You know? No amount of live performances could do what one show on TV does for a person.
Yeah,
especially like Ed Sullivan. That was the Ed Sullivan clip. How many times did you do the Sullivan show?
I don't know, but you know, it was always a pleasure because he was a real gentleman. You know, I mean, there were lots of people who had those power positions in American music were good guys,
right?
And that is important, you know, because America's always delivered all the music to the rest of the world, you know, with musicals, movies. It's always been American. And all of us English people were coming over here sort of aspiring to be part of this American music scene. Lots of people had hit records in England, but not lots of people had lots of hit records in America. Not all of us did. The period there was very good for the British invasion and everything. But until the Beatles broke that door open, it was Acker-Bilk was the only, you know.
Right. Absolutely. You hit it right on the head. I don't think we realized that. I guess that's why the British invasion was so powerful, because it opportuned us to hear a new music that we didn't hear.
I know exactly. I can explain it. It was your music played with more enthusiasm. We were all enthusiasts, remember. The difference between American musicians at the time and British musicians, we were enthusiasts. We didn't have a stamp book and a couple of cards. We only had music. So we were fully into music. We only listened to records and bought records and dated girls who liked music. It was all music, remember. And most of the music that I bought, I was unusual because I only bought American music. I didn't buy, and there were lots of great English people like Cliff Richard, who I discovered later.
Sure.
You know, there were lots of them. But, you know, I'd go and see the Undertakers, and I'd go and see the Mersey Beats, and I'd go and see the Jerry and the Pacemakers, and go and see such. They did American songs. You know, you'd see Jerry and the Pacemakers, they do Jambalaya. You'd see the Searchers, they do Needle. You know, the Love Potion #9. You'd see the Beatles, they do the Miracles song. Wow, where did they get that record? Miracles. Wow, you really got a hold on me. And we were all enthusiasts. And because England is a small country, people forget it's only as big as New Jersey. That it's a small country. We all knew each other, and we always knew what we were doing. Each other was doing. Oh, you're going to America? Yeah. You know, everybody knew what was going on. It was a small music scene.
Let me ask you, Pete, when you did the clubs, did you do it for weeks on end? Like here in America, you got a lot of bands that played the same clubs. They hit good. They did the same clubs for 3 weeks, 4 weeks in a row. Did you have that in England as well?
No, we would get a lot of dates at the Cavern in Liverpool because they had a lunchtime, and then they had a thing called Junior Cavern, which was between when school broke out and dinner time, because everybody it's a bit everybody's parents worked. Both parents worked. It was a period of like austerity in England where you couldn't have a family if you didn't both work. So kids would go home from school, but their parents weren't there until six o'clock or however long it took them to get home. So the cavern had this thing called the junior cavern where you could go from school and you could go there and there'd be a band on, and it was cheap and they didn't sell any booze. And then there was an evening cavern where they sold alcohol, like beer and wine or something, right?
Right.
So, and because we were nice boys, they gave us all three. We didn't go to school. We went and did the junior cavern, and then we didn't go to school, and then we stayed around and we did the lunchtime session. Then we'd stay around and do the junior cavern, and then because Bob Wooler liked us and we were cheap, they let us into the later ones, which was more heavier than much better bands than us. We were new and still practicing ideas. You know, we'd do My Boy Lollipop.
Wow.
You know, and Mother-in-Law, which was so appropriate that people thought that we were funny. We'd do songs no one else did because everybody could play those songs, but we ain't going to do Roll Over Beethoven now, the Beatles.
No, of course not. Hey, what are you going to add to that? Of course.
Well, that's where
Pete, we're going to play.
That's where Mrs. Brown, You Got a Lovely Daughter came from, those cavern things where we had to be completely different.
Wow. That's amazing. I don't think anybody knew that. That's a great antidote for that.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to play one more song before we get to talking about Peter Noon now. 1967, what I think is a song that's appropriate today. You recorded a song, one of your first songs that had meaning. This resonates today as much as it did 1967. Gabe, There's a Kind of Hush. My favorite Herman Hermit song.
You know, you playing it?
There's a kind of hush all over the world tonight, all over the world. You can hear the sounds of lovers in love. You know what I mean? Just the two of us and nobody else. In sight, there's nobody else, and I'm feeling good, just holding you tight. So listen very carefully, closer now, and you will see what I mean.
Tell us about that song, Peter.
Isn't that a great song?
It's amazing. It's an amazing song.
A lot of people had a go at it before we got it, and somehow we got lucky because John Paul Jones did that arrangement. You know, John Paul Jones, who was in Led Zeppelin, he was like a pop guy at the time. He'd done like this Mersey Beats records and stuff. He's like a big pop guy, and he just made it work. You know, he played the bass on it, and he directed the orchestra, and I sang at the same time as the orchestra, which was a first for me. You know, it's like almost like Frankie Valli in the Jersey Boys. It was like a magic moment. Yeah. And Mickey Most, I remember Mickey Most would say all the time, "I don't believe you." That was his key word. I don't believe you. You know, when you go and woke up this morning feeling fine, you have to make me believe you woke up this morning feeling fine. And There's a Kind of Hush was what he said like 3 times while we're making it. I don't believe you. You know, he'd look at you in this thing and I don't believe you. So you get more into it. And once again, those things were like one-take wonders. You know, you like to think that it took a lot of work to do it. It was just such a great arrangement to sing.
Right.
And, you know, they mixed as we went along. We didn't have overdubs and things like that. I know John Paul Jones put a double bass on afterwards. I sang my vocal again, and he conducted with a Fender bass, precision bass. There's a kind of hush, and with his face. And then he played the double bass on it, which is there's 2 basses all over that record. If you ever listen, if you ever get to break it down, you go, my God, there's 400 bass notes in every bar. But it just worked. You know, sometimes it just worked. And a lot of people had a go at it.
Absolutely. You know, it's nice to know that spontaneity, you know, 1 or 2 takes can create a masterpiece instead of bludgeoning it to death. You know, 20 takes, 30 takes.
You know, it got a little bit awry because, you know, those those early, like Elvis Presley records and those records, there weren't a lot of overdubs. They didn't have they didn't. First of all, they didn't have 20 tracks, and bit by bit, it all got out of control until people said it's better to do it with a machine. So then live music went away completely. Now where would, if you wanted to see a new band, say you're 16, you want to go and see a new band, where you go? There is nowhere.
There is nowhere. It's all YouTube.
And Gene, I'm from a period where my mom and dad thought I was safe all the time. People don't know about safety anymore. You go, I'm not sure.
Right.
Think about this, Gene. The Beatles played at Shea Stadium, and mothers and fathers dropped their teenage girls off, their 13-year-old teenager girls at Shea Stadium.
Never happened.
Up at 7:00.
Never happened again.
I know. So
never again.
The whole period was a period where people trusted their kids to be safe. You can't.
It was an innocence. It was an innocence.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed that. I was born in 66, so I only live vicariously through these interviews to know how safe and how peaceful things were.
Yeah, and that you could go to, I'm going to get, it's not political at all, but I think the music business changed when you needed to be 18 to go and hear music.
Could be, Peter. That's a very good assumption.
I look at those Beatles. I saw the Beatles in August 1963 in a park, and the stage was only this high.
Right.
And you can see the audience is much younger than you imagine. If you look at those girls at the Ed Sullivan show they're all 13, 14. There's no 20-year-olds.
No.
And I think if you have to wait until you're 18 to go and see a band, and the only exposure you've had to a band is on MTV or on a TikTok, it's a different kind of relationship with the music.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. It's no longer all talent. It's a popularity contest now.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know that when I was 13, I could go with my friends 100 miles away from my home to watch Sam Cooke at a gig, and my parents let me go because they expected me to be safe. They didn't expect something horrible to happen to me, but they expected me to be safe. And when I came to America, I was only, my dad had to sign off. Somebody else became my lawful guardian, and he didn't even know the people, but he trusted me. I'd be able to take care of myself. He taught me how to box, so I could have boxed my way out of trouble.
There you go. Peter, I'm going to put you on the spot because your career is so varied, so long. I would love to do part 2 with you at a later date.
Yeah, I'd love to. Me too. Yes, do it.
Yeah, it's so much fun. But let's talk about, you're talking about the Peter Noon collection.
Mm-hmm.
Is a book in your future?
Yeah, I think I'd like to do a book, but it would be anecdotal. I'd like to tell stories where people can smile a little bit. There wouldn't be any like dangerous stuff in there. I think just telling a story like getting in an elevator and John Lennon gets in the elevator and he asks me to sit at his table, and the waitress says, you needed to be 18, but I'm with one of the Beatles, so nobody asks any question. What are you doing there? And the waitress says there's a 2-drink minimum, and he says, "Great, I'll have 2 Bacardis and he'll have 2 Cokes." And he gave me one of the Bacardis, and I gave him one of the Cokes, and it was not needed to say anything. I was a kid, and you could say he turned me into an alcoholic, but that didn't happen. He just got me a drink, and I was fine with that. And the next time I saw him, he said, he never called me Peter or Herman. He always called me Hermit. And he goes, "Hermit, that's a nice suit. Do they make it in your size?" That's great stuff. That's English comedy.
That stuff in a book would bring happiness to people.
Well, it's a great story. It's all good stuff. I've had a charmed life. Not many people can say they were in a band that had sold 60 million records, and they met Elvis and knew the Beatles and hung out with the Stones and went on car rides in the night on a US tour. It's
and you're still working like you did in 65, including some big shows coming up this week for our good friend Joe Marioni. You're doing 3 shows in the Stars of the 60s title. Gabe, put that link up, please. There you go. poprockanddoop.com, ladies and gentlemen. Where are you going to be, Peter?
On Thursday, 21st, we're going to be at the Overture Center in Madison, Wisconsin. And on Friday, Saturday, we're at the Ford Community and again Performing Arts Center in Dearborn, Michigan. It's a good week.
It's a good week, and it's a good time of the year to be in Wisconsin and Michigan. I'll tell you that much. Because if you go there in February, we got problems.
I'm from England. Weather is never an issue, okay? Whatever weather you've got, you have to take it.
Right. So all the tickets to the shows that you're on with Joe Marioni is there on the link, everybody. www.poprockanddoop.com. You're going to be with who? Who are you going to be with? A couple of people.
It's different people. It's all great people. It's with people that we know as well. The Happenings guy, Bobby.
Yeah.
He's really, really smart guy. Bobby Miranda is his name. And we've known him since it was the original Vogues. He's been around as long as Herman's Hermits. It's a five
Happenings. Yeah.
And the Classics 4.
Yeah.
And on the 23rd, we were with the Shades of Blue.
Ooh.
Who made me so very happy. And let's see who else is on that one. I can't remember. Joe didn't put it on my thing. Maybe it's on that bill there.
It's on the bill. Everybody go to poprockdoop.com. Order your tickets for some great shows. Peter, a happy pre-birthday to you on November 5th. So happy. I'm going to look forward to part 2. The comments have been immense. We didn't even touch the tip of the Peter Noon iceberg. I tell you, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to
invite me back, Gene.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, in show business, there's only one way to give a man like this a great send-off. A big round of applause for Mr. Peter Noon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks. Great seeing you, man.
Thank you, buddy. Stay well.
Be well. Yeah, you too. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you. Wow, what a show. I tell you, the guy doesn't look any older than 25. I mean, 30 if you stretch it. Look at him. He's the epitome of youth. The music, the memories, the livelihood of Peter Newman, Herman's Hermits kept him young. Hopefully he keeps you young as well. Going to tell you once again about our show November 5th at the White Plains Performing Arts Center in White Plains, New York. The Dimensions, the Accords, the Magic Touch, Randy and the Rainbows, and Twin Gold. Go to WPPAC.com or call 914-328-1600 for your tickets. Don't forget, next week, 8 o'clock, October the 25th, hit maker from the 70s, Mr. Peter Lemongello, be with us. Have a great week, everybody. Good night, and God bless you.